6:30. It's Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. We'll call to order the Economic Development Authority, and we'll start with a roll call.
Bevins.
Here.
Beezer.
Here.
Kirsch.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Yeager.
Yes.
And Johnson.
Here, next up is the approval of the agenda. I'd like to approve the agenda with the addition of, I don't know if you're ready for this, David, but hopefully you are, adding an oath of office in between items 3 and 4, if we can get that approval. If you're prepared, if you have an oath of office within a minute or two, could have an oath of office, potentially. Okay, let's put that like at new business. I don't know.
No, put it at 4.5.
Put it at 4.5. Make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the amended agenda, including an oath of office at item 4.5. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. That brings us to 4, the consent calendar. We haven't had this at the EDA before, but we added it this month, and we're going to have it going forward. Just our monthly reports from our consultants and the financial report and everything will just be on a consent calendar that we'll just accept and approve all in one motion. If anybody wants to discuss any of these items separate, just let me know. We'll pull it out and we'll discuss it.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. Is there any discussion?
I have one question. I noticed when I was reading through it, there was a question to the EDA. How do we answer those with this motion?
You don't.
With Swanson Haskamp, they're asking for us to direct them how to prioritize different properties that they've listed.
We also have Swanson Haskamp at 6A under new business for the consideration of priority properties. So we
That's the
can
only-
discuss
that's-
it there.
That's the only one that I was worried about.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're addressing questions.
Yep. The Visit Brainerd also had a question, and I told her to come next month. So she'll have questions next month still. Can answer them then.
Okay. We have a second.
So with that, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion on adopting the consent calendar? Seeing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Bevins.
Yes.
Beezer.
Yes?
Kirsch.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Yeager. Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. That brings us to 4.5 oath of office. Jennifer.
Mr. Yeager,
Ms. Burton.
if you would please
I think he's done this before.
raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kevin Yeager, do solemnly swear
I, Kevin Yeager, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United
that
States,
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the Brainerd Economic Development
of
Authority
the office of the Brainerd Economic Authority
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota,
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome, Kevin. Hopefully you quickly learn how to handle yourself in a meeting.
I'm new to the board thing, so everyone could bear with me. That'd be great.
Do you want to go through and do introductions with everybody? I think you're pretty
Your
well
call,
aware
Mr.
of
Chair.
Everybody here. We'll go through on the board at least.
Very good.
Who you are, where you work, something like that.
My name is Tony Beezer, and I work at High Tech Construction.
Hi, Tony.
Hi.
I'm Marie Kirsch. I own Naughty Pine Bakery in downtown Brainerd.
Very good.
Abe Johnson, we're at Divine Johnson Marketing.
Kelly Bevins, Brainerd City Council Liaison, Ward 2.
Michael Day, council liaison at large, I think, and Lakes Chiropractic.
Very good. Nice to meet you all. I'm Kevin Yeager, so thank you.
All right, welcome, Kevin. Moving on the agenda here, it's old business. 5A is the consideration of a modification of Development District 2 and Industrial Park land sale to VCV LLC. Let's see if I can get to that on the agenda. David, you want to update us on this?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chair. So remember on December 9th, the EDA authorized staff to enter negotiation for the sale of industrial park land to what was then a B&D Power, but the actual legal entity who will be buying the land is VCV Digital Infrastructure Minnesota LLC. On Friday the 25th, we received an accepted, 25th of February, we received an accepted PDA, Purchase and Development Agreement for the sale of Lot 1, Blocks 2 and 3 of the Industrial Park First Edition. Excuse me. So that isn't attached. As part of this process, this is going to be a little bit of a multi-step process. I'll explain it really quickly. First things that need to be done is conduct a public hearing. This public hearing does have two parts to it. Before the EDA can actually vote to accept the PDA and make this sale, a modification to Development District Number 2 needs to be made. You may remember also back in December, you accepted authority of Development District Number 2 from the City Council. EDAs, you have to have development districts to be able to do certain things like sell land and to go into these kind of contracts. Currently, Development District Number 2 encompasses most of the industrial park, but does not include what we call Phase 4. It's that Thesey Road section where this land is included. So we will need to, the EDA will need to modify the development program to include Phase 4. There is a modification document in your packet that reflects that, and also resolution for when you choose to vote to adopt it. Our legal counsel is always to adopt these things by resolution. Once that is done, then you can consider approving the purchase and development agreement with VCV. A public hearing, again, because this is a public land sale, does need to be held for both the land sale as well as, again, the modification of the development program for Development District Number 2. And so you can do that kind of simultaneously first, and then do the development program modification, and then the purchase and development agreement.
Thank you, David. So next up is do the public hearing, you think?
Yes.
So at 7:38, we will open the public hearing on both items, one public hearing, two items. So if you have anything to say about the modification of the development program or the sale of Lot 1, Blocks 2 and 3, Brainerd Industrial Park First Edition to VCV Digital Infrastructure Minnesota LLC, please step forward now. Does anybody have anything to say on the modified development district or the sale of the land? Please step forward. Anybody has any comments on the modification of the development program or the sale of the land? Please step forward. Is there anybody online?
There's a few, but no one's.
Nobody's raising their hand. You have to, if you're online, you have to press *3 to raise your hand, and then we will unmute you. Anybody raise their hand? Seeing nobody come forward, we will close the public hearing at 7:39, and that moves us to the next item, which would be to adopt the attached resolution modifying the development program.
So moved, Bevins.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to modify the development program. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we vote by roll call.
Excuse me. Bevins.
Yes.
Beezer.
Yes.
Kirsch.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries, that resolution carries. The next item would be to approve the attached purchase and development contract with VCV Digital Infrastructure Minnesota LLC.
So moved, Bevins.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Bevins.
Yes.
Beezer.
Yes.
Kirsch.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes, that motion carries. That resolution is adopted. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is old business. 5B, the Bladex Shared Services Agreement Response. David.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So on January 6th, the EDA authorized staff to work with your subcommittee to draft agreements with the selected entities to provide economic development consulting services. As a reminder, Bladex was selected to provide business support and recruitment/retention services in the amount of $35,000. An agreement was sent to Bladec for their approval on January 20th. That agreement is attached. And on the 18th, the city also received the attached response from the Bladec board. So at this point, Mr. Chair, I think we're just looking for the EDA on how you would like to proceed. I don't know if there's anything, Jennifer, you want to add.
Nope.
Okay, so we sent them the contract where they would be doing 2 specific services we asked for. They sent us this in reply that they want to perform essentially the services Bladec performs for everybody for $35,000, which would change how we looked at it from our buckets, if you will, just to add them into the miscellaneous bucket and have Bladec do what Bladec does for $35,000. But I guess it's up to us if we say no, we're sticking with the original contract we sent over. If we say, yeah, this sounds fine, we'll give you $35,000 and you guys do what you've always done.
I think it was suggested that we went in the miscellaneous bucket. I don't think it matters one way or another, but I think if they want to be more technical as far as the communication, I think miscellaneous is good. But there's some things listed in here. I think the communication, maybe reporting, throughout the year, at the end of the year, it would be best to use this list that you've created, or your board has created, to show us what you guys are doing, specifically.
Yeah, Tyler, you want to come up here and answer questions or address the document?
Yeah. No, I can absolutely do that, and that's what we do. This is a contract that we have with all of the other communities that we do work with, and this is the type of stuff that we supply to those communities. So I'll provide reporting. A couple of them, then I provide reporting monthly. Baxter is one that I provide an annual report to. So it's however this board chooses to move forward with that, I'm comfortable with it. It's just as the board outlined in this, it's for us to continue to do what we do on a regular basis. And for the $35,000 and putting us into a miscellaneous bucket, we're very comfortable. You just tell me how you'd like us to respond to that, as far as from a reporting standpoint.
Any other questions, comments? Well, from Mike, and then we'll go.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there was a couple of deliverables that were in that initial service agreement that I think the EDA would probably still like to see happen. The business directory and the interviews with businesses. I'm just wondering if the city could take that on. It sounded like there might be an intern coming on board this summer that maybe could take that on as a project. And so I would just like to see that still happen. But
Can I address that, Marie?
Yeah.
We continue to do the business retention visits. I've actually done 2 of them with Brainerd businesses already this year. So we do them on a regular basis. So I'm happy we'll continue to do those and provide a report based on that. We do it every year, so we'll continue to do that. And we can bring that piece of it back for sure to this group.
Reading through the scope of services, it just sounded like though we wanted more of like a standardized list of questions, and maybe that's
Yep.
still something that could get developed either through.
We have it. I'd be happy to pass it along to all of you to review it, and if there's things you'd like to strike from it, we're absolutely happy to strike those from them. We have the form. I have the form. I can deliver it to all of you. You guys can look through it. It's a front and back page. It asks questions resulting, kind of, where are you looking from a workforce standpoint? What are you trying to do? Is your business growing? Is it expanding? We ask very general questions on revenue, nothing that gets specific with businesses. We talk about whether a business imports or exports depending on where they're located. So those are kind of general questions that are in it, but I'm happy to deliver it and see what you guys feel about it. If there's things you want to add to it, typically the meetings last, if we tour the facility, they probably last between 90 minutes and 2 hours. So we have plenty of time to ask a lot of questions. So I'm happy to bring that form back for you guys to look through and see if it fits what you as a board are thinking.
Let's do that. Let's provide that to us, and then also David and Tyler get together and see what we had in the scope of services and what it is Bladec intends to do this year,
Sure.
and what they may not, that we could have our intern work on this summer.
Happy to do so.
Yeah. Thanks, Tyler. Is
Yeah.
that- Tony?
I do have a couple questions. First, I think it would be good for us to see monthly reporting.
Sure.
And how your activities directly affect the city of Brainerd. Since they are public funds, we should know.
Absolutely.
I know there's some joint projects throughout the county, but how would they affect the city?
Tony, would you, and for this board and staff, would you like us to use the report or the, excuse me, the same reporting structure that the other groups are using for conformity? Is that what you'd like to see?
I think that would make sense to
Okay.
me.
And I've seen that, and we're very comfortable with that.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
The other thing is, one item that I didn't see in your deliverable was to meet with the other consultants. I would just like all of us to work together as a group, and so we're not doubling up on work, we're just, all working together towards the same goal. I think that's a key component.
Absolutely, and we do that we always have done that, and we're very
Okay.
happy to do that, and I look forward to that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same
Yes.
page, working towards the same goal together. So,
Absolutely, so
awesome.
do we.
Kevin?
Nothing to
Gailey?
add.
So,
I'm up.
Gailey?
I just want to, I know we don't have a motion on the floor.
No.
But I want to speak on behalf of moving forward in the affirmative with this relationship with Bladek. I might disagree with you a little bit, Tony, and I'll explain why. I've experienced some of these on-site visits, not structured the way we are looking for in this contract, but more informal. And I have to say that the information I've received back from Bladek, and particularly Tyler, invaluable compared to what's happening in the Brainerd business community. Maybe doesn't answer all the questions that we have expected moving forward, but can't get this information anywhere else because Bladek and Tyler is involved. I just want to suggest that alone is probably worth continuing the relationship. The other thing I might disagree with or might change is if we put them into our form, we might be missing something that they do that's better. I almost would like to see a report in March, at the end of March, before I said, do it this way. Do it the way everybody else is doing it. To let Bladek report back to us. We have the list of things we expect. It's got to be clear by now that at least a lot of the board felt that reporting back was lacking in years past. So show us what you would do, what you would think. That's the way I would do it. I can see the questions answered from the other people. I liked that too, because it's pretty simple. How much is 2 + 2? It's 4. Okay, it goes right down the line. But I'd hate to have somebody with all the experience that Bladek and Tyler have say, okay, this is what they want. And all this other stuff that I can give them is not on the list of what they've asked for. So therefore, I'm not going to share it with them because I want to do what they're asking. Does that make sense?
It does, but on some of the other ones, it has a miscellaneous column for all the other things that they're doing with the city as well.
Point taken. Thank you.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to either accept Bladek's offer with their standard contract they have with all the other communities, or tell them, no, accept the one we sent over, or nothing.
I have one more comment before I could make a motion.
You can make a motion, then make a comment after it.
I will motion to accept the presentation that Bladek has put up here.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept Bladek's shared service agreement. Any discussion?
I was just going to say, as far as the reporting, mentioned the monthly reporting on the consent calendar. I'm fine with that, but as far as any projects that do come up, obviously you would be here. I think with the other contracts, what do we have? 4 times a year they're going to be at a meeting?
Yeah.
Minimum out of towners. So maybe something along those lines if nothing is coming up.
I plan to attend the meetings monthly. It's just what I do. So I plan to do that, and we'll deliver the reporting. And if I've got updates, if it works for the board, I'll give those updates when I'm here. Also, but I can give those in written form as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention, I'm absolutely thrilled with the new pricing structure. I'm not suggesting that we were paying too much, but we were paying double what everybody else paid since I've been on the board, which is well over $1 million. May have been worth it. Never could figure out why we were paying that much, but I think the 35,000 seems, it's certainly more in line with what everybody else is paying. So,
I'm pleased with it as well, Kelly.
all right, thank you.
And yeah, I support the motion. I wanted it to be in the miscellaneous bucket from the start because I want to take advantage of all that Bladec has to offer, not just business retention and recruitment or whatever buckets we had them in. Let's just take all of their services, right? Any other thoughts?
Nothing to add.
All right, thanks, Tyler. Seeing no other comments, we will vote by a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. That brings us to item number 6, new business on the agenda. 6A, consideration of priority properties for marketing and redevelopment. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You may remember, as part of the agreement with Swanson Haskamp Consulting, one of the first projects that Jennifer Haskamp and her team were going to undergo is to create a list of priority properties for the EDA to consider, and then those would be the properties that we start off with as she goes about preparing marketing and redevelopment materials and such, and working with developers and property owners to get those properties developed. You'll find attached to your packet is a list of proposed properties that Jennifer and her team have put together after speaking with myself and kind of looking at the city as a whole. You will notice that there are a couple certain things that were left out, mainly the larger greenfield sites, such as the Mills property, off of 371, and then also the Anderson property off of Highway 210. Jennifer can obviously speak to the priority list. And I think one of the reasons is as we were looking at what's out there, we kind of said maybe in this situation, the best is looking at what are the underdeveloped or properties that need redevelopment in the core of the city, and not necessarily those big greenfield sites. We can always look at those bigger sites such as Millsland if the EDA wants that to be the priority. But again, right now we're just kind of looking at what are those redevelopment opportunities where we can work with property owners that might be kind of like that low-hanging fruit and maybe some easy wins. So with that, Mr. Chair, I don't know how you would like to go through that list. You can have asked Jennifer is online, and she can walk you through that list and kind of go through what maybe her thought process is on this list.
Yeah, Jennifer, if you could walk us through just brief overview of the list and what it is you want from us. How do you want us to whittle this down to 5 properties? Do you want us to prioritize which properties we are most interested in? Just let us know what we should be doing.
Sure. Thank you. It's nice to meet some of you for the first time. Hopefully soon I'll be able to meet you in person. So we worked with David over the last couple of weeks to figure out what the right mix of sites might be, as David alluded to. The idea really being that some of those larger redevelopment pieces in particular are likely to come forward on their own anyway, in terms of you as a group may not need to encourage or facilitate that. There's probably going to be some landowner interest regardless of whether or not you initiate it. So from that perspective, those, not that they take care of themselves, but they do a little bit to a certain extent. So the parcels that are identified on this list are really more those parcels that, as David said, are sort of underdeveloped or might be overdeveloped in a certain use, but are not the highest and best use that you as a group may like to see. So in those cases, so for example, several of them you might have noticed are parking lots or paved surface areas. They're not being utilized for the highest and best use at this time. So from a economic development, from a tax capacity perspective, et cetera, there's opportunity. But a lot of the owners that might own that type of property may not think about them as opportunities for development. So from that perspective, what we've identified, if it's in red, so the red markings indicate that there's some sort of redevelopment that would have to happen. So there's some kind of improvement that exists on the site today But again, it's not that highest and best use in that particular area. The green is a little bit more of a green field or something that doesn't have a lot of improvements on it today. So from that perspective, it might be, part of a parcel that happens to be undeveloped or unimproved. And so it still may need a subdivision, for example, to separate that developable area from it. But generally speaking, it's undeveloped. There aren't improvements on it. So you can kind of see that the stuff that's in that green field is kind of on your edges to a certain extent, while a lot of those parcels that are the redevelopment are along that corridor, where obviously we've got a lot of extra parking based on the use. So that's a brief overview. The map hopefully is helpful, the overview map at the beginning, because it kind of gives you a sense of how that concentration works. Obviously, there are some parcels from my work over the last year with the city that I know are also topics of conversation that are not here. Once again, I feel like those may take care of themselves because you already have developer interest in them. So this is sort of the parcels that folks the landowners may not think of them as having development capacity, but they do. And so from my perspective, David and I talked a little bit about this. There's a couple different ways we could go from a prioritization. One would be to say, look, we've got some parking lot areas in particular that are under ownership, like a corporate ownership. And so they likely haven't really thought about the fact that there might be some development capacity. So we could be charged with, let's tackle those first, because it's going to be a similar process, if you will, in terms of reaching out to the corporate entity to figure out what's going on, are they interested, et cetera, and being able to bring that back to you and say, we talked to 5 of those owners, 3 of them are interested, the other 2 dropped out. So then do we want to add another property or 2 to the mix? So that's one strategy. The other strategy would be to look at this and say, let's try to pick a mix of different development types or property types and see what we can tackle from there. So I think there's 2 different ways you could go about this, and it's really at the will of what you're looking for in terms of what you guys would like to do. So I can keep going or pass it back to you. So feel free to let me know what your thoughts are.
Okay, Jennifer, my first thoughts personally are, I don't think the downtown parking lots are going to take care of themselves. They've been sitting there for 30 years and they haven't taken care of themselves at all. We've had to take care of them the entire time. So I think we should prioritize those, since we took the parking commission, and maybe Kevin could speak to that since he was on the parking commission, but we took the parking commission's recommendations to market the parking lots downtown for redevelopment. Do you plan on doing that?
So I'm going to toss it over to David because, well, first of all, I wasn't totally sure what came out of the parking commission. I did know you had one, so I wasn't 100% confident where you were at with that. So David, if you'd like to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely, I can take that, Mr. Chair. So when Jennifer and I last met on this, it was before the parking commission recommendations had actually been adopted. So that's where that piece obviously isn't in here, is because that was after we met before that. So again, there are items on this list that absolutely can be added. So the City Hall lot, the Laurel Street lot, and the Front Street lot, which were recommendations from the Parking Commission to market those for redevelopment, absolutely can be added to this list. If there are, if you want to add the Mills land or the Anderson land to this list, we absolutely can add it to this list. This was just kind of that first shot at that list of, here's some that we've identified.
Okay, and then David or Jennifer, at this time, do you just want us to say, yeah, okay, these all look good, and you guys will go contact the property owners? Or do you want us to whittle this list down at all?
I think it would be helpful if there was a little bit of a whittling down. If you want us to contact them all, we'll contact them all. But we just want to know, is there any in here that are specific that, yes, we definitely want to look at that property, or is there a property on here you're like, nah, we really don't want to look at that property. It's kind of a waste of time.
Well, me personally, I think Thrifty White is a waste of time. They just built that parking lot like 2 years ago. They're not going to want to sell it. They asked us to change our zoning code so they could build the parking lot.
I think I was the one that voted against that.
You absolutely were.
Can I speak to that?
Go ahead, Kelly.
I absolutely don't think we can make this call right this second, because if you're gonna go to some, imagine me coming to your home and saying, I think you've got too big a yard. I'm gonna suggest you sell off 30% to Mr. O'Day here. Right? I mean, that's what you're, if you're telling Thrifty White, because I'll use that because that they wanted that bad enough to make the zoning. There's a thought process for commercial development that you never want your parking lot full. You always want it at max 2/3 full, so I can entice you to come in. Walmart does that on purpose. So if we had absolutely nothing to do and unlimited money, but you're kind of implying, let's go out there. We can't sell our industrial lots. So now we're going to go take property from private individuals who worked hard and to develop the property in the way they thought best suits their business, and try and do what? Buy it for the city? Or find Kevin Yeager to buy it, or Marie or somebody. I'm not saying it's a bad idea at all. I'm just saying it would be, in my opinion, way down on the priority list of spending staff time to encourage private landowners that they have too much property in, or property that I don't think looks good because it's a parking lot. I get that. If I had nothing else to do, we could probably do it, but that's my comment.
So is your comment, get rid of all of these except maybe the state hospital land and focus more on the city lots and the industrial park
Yes,
lots? Okay.
yes, and the parking lots downtown, as you suggested. I thought stuff that we already have an obligation to.
Yeah.
I get how things have changed in commercial development. I would be willing to bet, although I think, Kevin, you do mostly residential.
Yes.
You have enough experience that you could enlighten us as to some of the changes. I know Mr. Marone can. We have assets in this community. But those are all privately owned pieces of property. It's a little bit different than developing something that we already have an obligation to because we own it, whether it's industrial park, parking lots, state hospital land. So that would be my comment on prioritization. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Kevin?
Mr. Day was first, please.
No, go ahead. You gotta talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Point well taken, Kelly. I'd just like to add another perspective on this, in that, in my opinion, it doesn't hurt to at least make the first contact. Sometimes these properties may have changed hands recently. They may have gone to a different owner, and that owner may not have the same designs for the future that the previous owner had. So, in my opinion, it doesn't hurt to at least open the door to say there may be something else to look at here. So, and from my perspective, just globally speaking, I always believe that expansion out should be the second motivation. That's my personal opinion, is that if you continue to expand out, you make it easier to rot from within. So I'm always going to side towards the angle of infill redevelopment from within first, if at all possible. And I happen to agree with Jennifer that most of those, what I see in green, will probably work themselves out if we get a robust climate happening on its own. So my leaning would be towards the red dots, and at least ask the question, and then maybe a little feedback after that. That's all.
Alderman O'Day?
I'm going to agree with Kevin. I do agree with Kelly in part that, if the city comes up and says, we don't like your property right now and we want to change it, that's not the right approach. But I think there's better ways to approach them and say, hey, have you thought about redevelopment? Just, be careful in who you're dealing with, who you're talking to. I think of it in the ways of starting with the downtown parking lots. We already have initiatives for the industrial park lots and things like that, which aren't listed on here. But I like focusing on those main thoroughfares. South 6th, we don't really have a lot on this list. But Highway 210, we're going to be redoing that in 2025. And this is kind of our chance to get started on finding some ideas where some of these owners might want to improve facades, sell, rebuild, whatever they want to do, we won't know unless we ask them, you know, if we can help them. You know, more of a helping hand than we want to come and change everything. That's just my thoughts.
Tony, Marie?
I agree with everyone on the board here. I think to get going, we should start on the red and take it from there.
Generally in agreement too. I think it makes sense to focus on that 210 corridor and just, you know, try to ask and see to get started. And that way, I feel like that's a very visible area too. So we can, yeah, just focus on more of a targeted area to make it more of an impact and then kind of branch out from there. I think that's a good approach.
And I tend to agree more so with Kelly's thoughts on the matter, which we have some parking lots downtown, we have some industrial parklands, we have city-owned properties that we don't necessarily want the city to own, right? We want more businesses to come in and invest in our industrial park. We're not really going to be able to buy a third of Taco John's parking lot, but maybe we are. So if you want to go ask Taco John's for a third of their parking lot, but I think it's a waste of time. But I want to focus on the properties we own. And then I also want to ask Tyler, will you reach out to the owner of Liberty Group? That knocks off like a third of the list. Yeah, see if he's interested in selling all his land. Okay. But is that murky enough for you, Jessica? Or Jennifer?
We can do a motion if you want
So,
to.
Mr. Chair, if I
David?
may, if you want to have a motion, you can. I think, and what I'm hearing at least, and I'll toss back to Jennifer in just a minute, just to confirm that's also what she's hearing, is maybe, I think what I kind of hear two things from the EDA is one is on this list, focus on the red, those redevelopment, but then maybe also, we also need to add in, ensure we're looking at the city-owned property. So we're looking at the downtown parking lots. Again, the council just adopted the parking commission's recommendation to market those. And then as well as the industrial land and any other city-owned land that we have that might be developable. So kind of those two things. And then what Jennifer, we want us to do is Jennifer and I work over the next month and in preparation and come back in April with, again, that refined list of those red dot items, the city lots, the city properties, and then maybe with an action plan. So you can actually kind of see how Jennifer is proposing on, especially the privately owned properties, how we're planning on approaching that and what the next, 6-9 months looks like.
And written permission from any private property owner that we are allowed to start marketing their private property and visualizing what we want on their property.
And to confirm, Mr. Chair, I think that might be like the next step. I think what we're thinking maybe for April is we come, here's our action plan. Step one is we want to reach out and say, hey, we've identified your property. Would you work with us? Unless you want us to directly contact them in March, we can do that as well.
No, if you think we're a month out from that plan works for me. Yeah.
Jennifer, is that kind of what you're hearing?
I would absolutely agree with that. The other thing I would say is it's all in the approach and the delivery, right? So walking into a business owner, I don't tend to go, give me 30% of your land. That's never a good way to start. The better way to start is really to say, have you ever thought about how you might be able to generate more cash flow at your business and how developing something that's underutilized actually could benefit them? And so it's approaching it from that angle and then seeing if you have any interest. And if they say no, they say no. That's all right. It never hurts to ask. But in my experience, there are definitely times where, especially these large holding groups, will say, I never thought about it. So I think we bring back in April. I can't believe it's going to be April already. We bring back in April sort of that revised list, and then also maybe a little bit of an action plan of how we might approach some of those property owners, especially those that are in the red dots. So.
Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any problems with that approach?
Nope.
No, okay, thank you, David and Jennifer, for putting this together for us this month, and look forward to seeing what you have next month. That ends that agenda item, we'll say. That'll bring us to the next one. That was 6A. Now we're 7, informational staff reports. Brainerd HRA, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of updates for the board today. Through the county HRA side, we are in the process of getting the last tax forfeited lot that is out in Serene Pines conveyed to the county HRA through the tax forfeit policy, with the ultimate goal of facilitating the sale of that lot to the current developer. So we've got some continuity out there in that neighborhood. And hopefully we will be getting another single-family home built on that. Just to refresh everybody's memory, that lot was still out there because of a clerical error at the time that there was a building put on one of those parcels, so it wasn't tax forfeit at the time when the HRA had worked on the purchase and redevelopment agreement. The city of Brainerd, the city council did pass a resolution on the 22nd to not recertify the tax assessments on that lot in lieu of the net proceeds of the sale from that lot being provided to the city. So we will be working on that at our Crow Wing County HRA board meeting next Tuesday on the 8th, and we are also requesting from the Crow Wing County commissioners that that lot does get conveyed to the HRA at that March 8th meeting for them as well. So hopefully get a sale nailed down by April. The developer is planning on getting that lot built out this coming calendar year, so that's a good thing. City and the HRA did meet with the developer for the proposed redevelopment project down on the corner of Laurel and 8th. At the beginning of February, the developer is still in continuing negotiations with the seller of that property, but that prior purchase agreement that they had entered into did lapse. Developer is still interested, so we are going to continue from the HRA and from the city's perspective to look for funding opportunities that are available and hopefully continue to entice them to want to build down there.
It's at the 805 Laurel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Met with a local builder on the 24th, so last week, to discuss utilizing the tax forfeit property policy again for some forfeited lots in Brainerd. With the help of David, he put together a list as well, and we've identified 3 lots that that developer is interested in purchasing for infill for single-family homes. We don't have an end date on when we're going to be negotiating that, but we are going to move forward with that, and that is a very encouraging thought as well, and happy to facilitate through the tax forfeit property policy there. And finally, I will be heading over to the Greater Lakes Association of Realtors this morning to tout our housing trust fund from, again, the county HRA's perspective to the local area realtors to really hopefully enlighten them and encourage them to start to reaching out to their buyers of properties to try to utilize our down payment assistance program, and then as well for folks that they're working with on selling their properties to take advantage of our rehab programs if their properties aren't quite up to standard that they need to get them sold. Two-pronged approach there is, number one, we want to get people into the new homes that are out there, and providing down payment assistance can sometimes help those folks that are on the cusp of home ownership actually get into it without having the dollars saved. And then that second tier on there is the rehab. We need to keep the homes in Brainerd and Crow Wing County specifically. We need to keep those around. We don't want to demo them if we don't have to, because hey, we need a lot more homes in the county and in Brainerd. So hopefully get them on board and get their real estate agents out there touting the program. That's all I have, unless you got any questions.
Thanks, Eric. Any questions of the HRA?
I'm not sure what the exact address is. The property on Laurel Street, I think it's tax forfeiture.
Dixon's Electric.
Sure. Yep. It's still in the redemption period.
How far into that is it?
That just went on the rolls this year. So as the calendar turned in, and I believe, I can't remember what the 3 years in redemption. So we're still a ways out from that, but it is something that we're targeting and looking at for redevelopment possibilities. Basically, the property owner does have the ability to redeem that and pay those taxes if they so choose. Other than that, it's kind of a waiting game, unfortunately.
Do we know how much they owe?
I don't, off the top of my head.
Is a process, I believe, that they can waive the redemption period, no?
Through the county, I'm not aware of that.
I thought we did that
can
with
look
the
into it.
downtown motel, didn't we?
I can look into that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Maybe we pay the property owner to waive their right to
I mean, you could
redemption,
potentially enter into a negotiation that way.
or purchase it from them and
Somebody
Pay the
chomping
taxes.
at the bit to get it?
tear it down.
That man, if you just be patient, young Jedi.
Over long enough period, it will be down. Any other questions, Mike?
No, that's it.
Any other questions of the HRA? Thanks, Eric. Okay, EDA goals update. Do you want to update us on this, Jennifer?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if I actually could just do a brief staff update.
Yeah.
Just wanted to let you know that BPU did review and approve the purchase for energy with AEP, and that they are moving forward to finalize those power purchase agreements. So just thought you might be interested in that update.
Thank you. And the EDA goals update, when I met with David last week going over the agenda, I just proposed we include this on the agenda each month so we can remind ourselves what our goals and strategic initiatives we set just last year were. I don't know if you want to comment on them at all, David?
Yeah, no, so, thank you, Mr. Chair. So pretty much we just took the goals, again, as you adopted them in 2021. Again, reminder that these were 2-year goals. And then just updated them now that we have consultants on board, kind of who is doing what and where we're at with that. So, per the chair's request, this will be on the agenda every month with any updates that we have for those specific items.
Thank you. That ends item number 7. We're to item number 8, commissioners' comments, questions. Commissioner O'Day?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think we have fulfilled a lot of contracts and come to a lot of agreements. I think we're heading in the right direction. We've got a lot of feelers out there now. I'm excited about what Jennifer and David can do for these properties, and looking forward to the future.
Nothing to add to Mr. O'Day's comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirsch.
I forgot to bring this up during the discussion of the sale. I was just wondering, the money that we get from that sale, how is that money used?
So I need to do a little bit more research just because now we're selling them for not $1. And so we do have an outstanding loan with the revolving loan fund, the state MIF dollars. But otherwise it would go into the city's capital fund.
But we could change that. We could request.
It could come to the EDA as well.
Yeah. So we
Actually, it would come to the EDA and the EDA would decide what to do with it. You are correct, Gabe. Because the land is being held by, it's in the EDA fund.
Yeah, the city just gave it to us for free. We can do whatever we want with it now.
Good move.
Commissioner Beezer?
I'm just excited the way, the positive motion that the city and this group is going, so let's keep it up.
All right, Commissioner Yeager.
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and I just have one thing to add. I spoke to the executive director of Visit. I have 2 things. Spoke to the executive director of Visit Brainerd. She does have a couple questions about our marketing campaigns that she's going to run for us this year, so she'll bring those to us next month. Hopefully get them to us ahead of time so we can have answers for her at the meeting. And Riley, welcome to the meeting. We'll probably have you on the agenda sometime this year, right? Once quarterly or something. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move, Bevin.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That